All right, I think we can get started. Appreciate everyone joining us tonight. We may be at a handicap. We're battling a very pretty night out there, so we may not have as many, quite as many attendees just because it is gorgeous out there. So thanks for taking the time to join us. This is the second meeting uh, for this neighborhood's traffic calming project, and so thanks for bearing with us. We've been on a long break in between. The first one we met way back first of the year. It was cold outside back then, and so we're just now getting back to you. So thanks for your patience with that, and hopefully we're on a faster track now to get this project moving forward. I see Councilman Cash on the call, so appreciate you joining us. Is there anything you want to announce or anything special from the council you want to say, Councilman?
Nothing specific. We just passed our CIB and hope that we can continue good traffic calming programs and good other infrastructure relating to pedestrian, walkability and bikeability. So I appreciate you working as hard as you have on this program.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, and thank you for the support of all our council members. Just a couple of housekeeping things. You may have gotten a little notice there a second ago. I did start the recording for this meeting. We do record all of these meetings. And so if you have a neighbor who wasn't able to attend with us here tonight, that recording will be available here in a few days on NDOT's website for traffic calming. And by way of introduction, which I have not done, my name is Jeff Hammond. I am a consultant working on behalf of the Nashville Department of Transportation. One of our roles is to help administer this program for Metro. And the last thing is you all have the ability to unmute yourself. We welcome you to do that as we go through any of this information. If you have questions or comments, we're a small group here, so feel free to do that. I'm gonna try to be extra efficient. A lot of this information we covered at the first meeting. I've culled some of that out and don't feel like we need to go back through it again. I really want to get to the plan that we've been working on and let you see that. You'll remember that back at our first meeting, we presented a concept which I thought we were we were very close on. Excuse me. But there was some opinion that we wanted to get all of those details together and come back and let you have a look at those. So we've got that for you tonight. I'd like to have your feedback on those. I think everyone knows by now what the traffic calming program is. Most people think of us as the speed cushion program. That's okay with us. That's a big part of what we do, but we do focus in residential areas and putting those physical solutions in the street that cars either have to drive over or drive around. We found that nothing slows traffic down quite as effectively as those types of things. And then focusing on speed reduction as opposed to trying to push traffic to some other street. That's not our intent. That sometimes is likely a byproduct, but we try to design the project so that it's not so onerous that cars feel like they have to go to a totally different street to avoid these devices. We did talk about how these two streets, and by the way, these are two separate streets. They're two separate projects. When we get into the ballot or the voting for these, they are two separate things. But we because they intersect, and neighbors will be affected by both likely. We thought it's helpful just to talk about them all together in one meeting. But for both 24th and Blair, this is how they were inducted into the program. This is true for all of our traffic calming projects. We follow this this prioritization process. You may remember that we talked about the demand that we have for traffic calming around the county, and when we have so many, we have to make some tough decisions about what projects move forward and what don't go just yet. This is how we do that. About 70% of the scoring system that we use is vehicle data, how fast cars are going and how many cars are on your street. And then the remaining is very near and dear to neighborhoods like this one, where I know you've got just a slew of pedestrians walking, some of which are very young and some of our most vulnerable there at the school. And also 30% of the scoring goes to address those types of needs and situations. And anyway, we roll all of that up, and both of these streets scored high enough, for better or worse, to warrant some attention from NDOT. So that's why we're here. And here's some of that information that is specific to the streets. We talked about the speed, not the highest that we've seen, which is a good thing. But the traffic volume is on the upper end of some of our projects. We're pushing right at 4,000 cars a day. And then the street width is really, I won't say it's problematic, but it has created some interesting aspects for our design. The street width is really widely variable here on 24th, from down at the St. Bernard end, maybe more on the narrow end of that. By the time you get up closer to Blakemore, it's a really wide street with parking and bike lanes and all the rest. So um, that's why you're seeing such a wide variation there, and it's about a half a mile long. Blair's a little more consistent, although it's got some variation on its own, but it's a little bit of a faster street, 33 miles an hour, and even higher volume than 24. So both of these are pretty high volume streets. We recognize that, have tried to design this project accordingly. We did talk about this. I won't go into a lot more detail, but I did just want to we covered all of the tools in our program last time, but I really just want to focus on this one, speed cushions. It is the bread and butter of this design and really of almost every design that we're doing currently in Metro for the traffic calming program. And it is because they work. They're consistent. People have, come to recognize that what these are, how they function, how they feel, what they look like. We like them because we know how they hold up over time, and we like that consistency that we see in neighborhood to neighborhood when we have to deploy something like this. It's a recycled rubber product, so it's hard enough, but to hold up well, but hopefully it doesn't jar or present too much discomfort. It's only about 3 inches tall, so it's not at all like what you have in the Home Depot or the Kroger parking lot that just really bounces you around. And part of that is they are much longer than your typical speed bump that you might have in those situations. For this project, we're recommending using a 10.5-foot long speed cushion. That's really our default anymore in Metro. Sometimes in a very, very urban area, we might do a shorter cushion, like 7 feet, or in rural areas, we'll use a longer cushion at 14 feet. And that just has to do with, the speed that we're trying to achieve and what the beginning speed is. As we pointed out, the beginning speed, the speed out there today is really not just a really high speed that we're trying to substantially curtail. So we like that 10.5-foot cushion. We think it's a good balance between comfort from you all who have to drive over these every day and at the same time being effective and bringing speeds down. So, the other thing you'll notice there's some gaps in between those. That's by design, and that's largely for emergency vehicle access. And then toward the edges, or I should say, I guess, both toward the edges and just in the configuration that you see, whether we use 2 cushions or 3 cushions, or in your case, more than that. The point there is we want to make sure that we've got good coverage across the width of the road. If we have learned, we know that if we leave enough of a gap in between cushions or on the edges of cushions, people will drive around these and sometimes go to great lengths to do that. Fortunately, in this case, I think in all areas of this project, you've got curb and gutter, and that curb is a great obstacle to people trying to do that. I don't think we've had any instances where people actually hop the curb to drive around. That would be incredibly uncomfortable, so we don't see that much. All right, so here's what we showed you last time. I know this is a little busy. These virtual meetings, this may even be helpful. So if you can see this on your screen very well, you can get up closer to it than when we're in the room. But in any event, this was the concept that we showed for the 24th Avenue project. And just to orient you a little bit, first of all, if you're map inclined, north is to the right here, and so Blair is the street that's running up and down on the far left hand side, and then working your way north up to Blakemore, where the traffic signal symbol is on the right-hand side of the screen, just to give you some direction. And we were looking at 2 speed cushion locations on the St. Bernard side of Fairfax in the always stop, and then 2 on the north side of the always stop. So this is the first sheet of our plans. That part has not changed. We're still looking at 2 and 2. We think the spacing there gives us a good coverage. Our objective there is to have cushions close enough together that cars don't speed up substantially in between, just to have to slow down again to get to the next speed cushion, but not so close together that it's really problematic for you all, or again would divert traffic to some other street. So we think back then we were proposing 2, we're still proposing that. We think that's the best layout. Some of the details, though, is where we've spent some time and tried to work within some of the comments that we heard. Again, we know this street is variable. The lane widths are not consistent. They're not the same. Even at one location, the lanes are different widths. We talked about some of the arrival and dismissal patterns there at the school, and so all of that was very helpful in us coming up with a way to lay these speed cushions in that we don't think, and our goal is to not disrupt some of the activities there at the school that you go through every day. One of the things that we heard loud and clear, you don't see anything here in this plan, but that doesn't mean that NDOT and their sidewalk crews and all aren't considering, or still considering to look at it and figure out what the best plan of approach is the request and the need for safe crossing crosswalk there at Bernard Avenue and 24th. The way we have handled that is to make sure that the speed cushions that we put in, which are really at that intersection, we're just on the north side of that intersection, wouldn't interfere with a potential future project there. If it's determined that can be built, and the city comes back with a small project to help facilitate that crossing there. We've kind of been working in concert with them on what that would look like to make sure that what we put in wouldn't preclude some of that from happening. In any event, whatever we do, just know that these are modular devices. They can be moved. This is not something that's built in out of concrete and asphalt that becomes very difficult if anything happens in the future along those lines. So, but we have tried to foresee that possibility and kind of work accordingly.
Hey, Jeff, I think just to point out, I think we've got 3 or 4 people that have phoned in and may not have video. So if when we talk about where something is going, if we can, as best we can, like indicate the address or kind of a geographic visual to share so that they can kind of see it in their heads if they can't see it in the video.
Okay, yeah, I'll certainly do that. And let me take the opportunity here to say too that we have already posted these plans on our website, and so I know if you can't video, there's a good likelihood you can't see the website either. But in case you can actually pull these up currently. If you go to Metro's traffic calming website, always just Google it and find it, and you go to current design plans. You'll find both the 24th Avenue and the Blair Boulevard plans there now. So feel free to pull those up. We'll talk more about why they're there and what the purpose of that is here in a little bit. But specific to that request, and thank you for pointing that out. What you see here on these design plans is you see it visually, but you also get a description, so that if you're out in the evening and walking this and want to find out exactly where we're proposing these speed cushions, we hope that these are not so technical that you can't do that. So we're working down from the south end. This is down toward the Blair Boulevard end, and our first set of speed cushions, the plans say, would be 30 feet south of the driveway at 2043 24th Avenue. That's the level of detail that we give. That's enough detail for our contractors to go out and install these, and hopefully it's enough detail for you all. Like I say, if you're out and want to pinpoint that and get an idea of where that is. Where that is on the ground too, maybe a better, easier description. It's immediately north of the intersection of Bernard Avenue. Now we try to move these back as far as we can away from intersections so that as you're making that turning movement driving, it's not totally awkward and you're trying to turn and go over a speed cushion at the same time. But in this case, to get one in this area, which we know was kind of a sensitive area from the kids crossing at that location and just anywhere in front of that school, we tried to work hard to squeeze something in right here. We think it's a good spot. We would love to have more room, but this is kind of an ongoing theme for this neighborhood. There are a lot of driveways to work around. And so not only do we try to space these things out away from intersections, we try to do that with every individual driveway as well. So we don't have a huge amount of latitude. Sometimes we have to take whatever little opportunity we can and put something in. So anyway, that's where that first set of speed cushions is located, immediately north of Bernard. As you drive north or walk north, the next set is just a little bit north of the intersection of Barton, and the description there is 80 feet north of the intersection of Barton and 24th, kind of right in front of that apartment building that's there. I think, if I remember right, there's some great big old, pretty old trees right there along the road, right along in that area there in front of 2000, 24th Avenue. Then you have the always stop, which we hope kind of works to slow traffic down. That's not the intent, but hopefully people are stopping at the intersection of Fairfax. And then as you proceed from that, the third speed cushion is in front of 1808. That I think is another residential apartment building. And so we are, it's in front of 1808, but it's also 122 feet south of the intersection at Ackland. And that's right there in that stretch where there is some on-street parking and some the bike lane has picked back up and all of that. And then just a little bit north of there is our last step before you get to the turn lanes and all that develop there at the Blakemore intersection. And that was right in front, I believe that is a Vanderbilt building. It's 2147 24th Avenue. So we're right there just south of Belcourt. That's the four locations. They're pretty well spaced. We're happy with that. One of the things that is pretty unique to this street is how we have to lay those in across the width of the road, just the way the lanes have laid out. One of the things we talked about last time was what we typically do in these projects is not go in and try to redesign the road in terms of the striping or the patterns that you all are familiar with. So we're really working within the confines of where is that center line now, where are the edge lines, where's the parking, where are the bike lanes, and work within that. We've done that. That meant this project has something we haven't done anywhere else in Nashville, and that's kind of develop a custom speed cushion to kind of handle a little bit extra width. You guys won't notice the difference, but we're excited by it. Most of our speed cushion, the standard width is 6 feet wide. We're actually building a 9-foot wide speed cushion here to again, just cover that width. We want to be sure that cars can't straddle this or do something wacky to try to avoid the impact of these. Again, I don't think you all will notice. It still gives us that gap and all, but it's just a little bit wider of a speed cushion that meets our purposes. And then down on or up on the north end of the project in front of Fannie Mae Dees Park, we also have to take into account the fact that we've got that parking area and we've got that bike lane. And at night, when that parking is a little more cleared out than it is during the day, that's a lot of wide open pavement sitting there. And so what we have done is develop a series of plastic delineators just at those two locations, one or two delineators there to make sure that cars don't just easily drive around into that parking area just to bypass these. So that kind of keeps traffic honest, keeps them in the street going over that because people don't want to run over those delineators. You can see, I know some of you can't see that, but there is a detail page that lays that out. It's probably way more details than you need or you're interested in, but They're important to us, and they may be important to you to see how these would be configured at those 4 locations on the street. Before I go on to Blair, any comments or questions about any of that?
Hi, Jeff.
Hi.
Lee Vincent, Hillsborough West End Neighborhood Association. 2 questions. Did we get to the bottom of how voting is going to be handled in terms of these large entities such as SBA, Ronald McDonald House, the Martin Center, which are on 24th? How does that work?
Yeah, we'll cover the voting here, but we typically don't ballot commercial properties. None of those that you called I might refer to as commercial. They're all a little bit quasi. So we will still be sending a ballot to those entities, but it will be one ballot. It will count the same as anybody who owns a piece of property along through here. That's true, and that's consistent with how we handle schools and churches and those kind of things, which are a little more common. We don't often deal with, that form of housing like you have at the Ronald McDonald House, but they're obviously a big stakeholder and an important part of this street, and so they'll get the opportunity just like others.
Great. One other quick question. The white delineators, those are important because that keeps people from driving around the cushions when there's no parking, like you mentioned. Those tend to fail once they get run over 2, 3, 4, 100 times. Would that be like a hub Nashville request if those tend to go out over time, or do we have to come back through traffic calming to get those fixed or replaced?
No, that's a hub Nashville request, and
Okay.
and NDOT does stock those, and easy for me to say, but it really should hopefully is as easy as getting one at the warehouse, and you take a pin out, you put a new one in, and off you go. So they will
Great.
hold up. They don't fail as on the first hit usually.
Sure.
If they are hit repeatedly, you're absolutely right. The other thing about this is we often find that when you're not, we use these a lot, like at intersections and things, and they get hit an awful lot there. Hopefully, when we're dealing with kind of straightaways and in concert, especially with a speed cushion, whose intent is to slow traffic down, hopefully they'll survive a little bit better in a situation like that.
Great. Thank you, Jeff.
Anything else from anyone? All right. Well, we won't leave that totally. If you think of other things, we'll come back to it. I'll go ahead and talk about Blair. I don't think Blair had quite as many concerns. There was a large part of that discussion that dealt with the school there. So, but Blair is a street that we showed you locate 5 cushion location configuration there. We're still dealing with that as well. We did hear some things that were really helpful and have made some adjustments accordingly. But working from the Natchez Trace in, going down toward the 21st Avenue in, from Natchez Trace before you get to the stop sign at 24th, excuse me, let me advance this. There would be 3 sets of speed cushions spaced out through that area. And so the first one is, probably won't mean much to you unless you happen to live at 2531 or very close, but it's 10 feet east of the brick walkway at 2531, and then coming down probably only about 200, maybe 250 feet is the next set at 2525 Blair. We would like to have those a little further apart. We don't think it's necessarily a problem, but again, the constraint there is just the number of driveways. We're doing our best to get a couple of sets of speed cushions without a huge gap in between, and working around those driveway locations to keep them as far away from those folks' driveways as we can. So that's why those look a little closer together. They are a little closer together, but still think that'll give us a good result. And then the last one is just that side of the 25th Avenue intersection. There was some comment about that. We know that's where the crosswalk is. We think putting a set of speed cushions there, in addition to just being good spacing for us, will give us that added benefit of being right there at that crosswalk location. So we feel like that's a positive thing. You may notice here on these little symbols there that we're talking now about a 4 cushion location. Again, just given the width, we'll show you that in a little more detail here in just a second. But in this case, we would have 2 cushions in the travel lanes, and then 2 cushions on the outside that are actually in the parking areas now. You'll still be able to park on them. You can park just like you always have. It really doesn't even do away with any of the parking that's there. If you're willing to park on one of these things, it doesn't hurt the speed cushion at all. And so anyway, that's again, just make sure we go with the full width of the road. And then coming up on the next sheet, after you go through the stop sign at 24th, there would be 2 more speed cushion locations. The width of the road, you lose the parking on one side of the street there, and so the configuration changes again a little bit there. And but one set is at 2136 Blair, and then the last set is at 2120. One of the good comments that we heard that really made a lot of sense to us was someone had pointed out that, especially in the evening rush hour, if you stop off at Kroger and you're trying to turn left out of there, sometimes you don't have a lot of gap. Cars come in off of 21st, and so you can't really pull out very slowly. You have to accept a little bit less of a gap, and so they said, if you can, make sure that you can do that and safely get into traffic before you hit the first speed cushion. So we stood there and watched that movement for a little while and agreed and did move that first set of speed cushions back just about another parcel into the street. So it's still right there as you turn off of 21st, but we did feel like giving it another 30, 40 feet was a very valid point. So we appreciate that. Then the last sheet here shows those details for what it's worth. Again, speed cushion in the lane and then one in the parking lane where that is applicable. And that is it. That's the full rundown. It's not very exciting. It's a set of speed cushions on both streets, but took some doing to get there. I think we've got a good plan, and look forward to moving that up. But any other questions or comments about that? We'll talk a little bit about where we're going next, what the next steps are in that ballot process that Lee brought up. So again, we're here really in the second neighborhood meeting down here at this bottom light blue circle. The design is complete. That's the good part about this approach is we're having a second neighborhood meeting, but in this case, we've already got the design done now that you just saw. It has been posted online, and so I mentioned why it's posted online. We do that in advance of the ballot every time. If there's something that you all would have seen tonight and said, no, that's wrong, when they go back, we can easily take it back down. But our intent is, now that it's online, is to move this to that next step, if you all are okay with it, and moving into the online ballot. We want to make sure when those ballot cards go out, and your neighbors who may have not heard of any of these meetings or anything about this, they have all the information that they need to make a good decision on how they want to vote for this. And so those plans are online for that reason. There will be a link when you get a ballot card to not only place your vote, but also view and study those plans as much as you want to. That ballot process will stay open for 6 weeks. And after that, then if it passes, it will go into the construction queue. We had been saying, probably back when we met with you, we were saying, don't hold your breath. It's really long. It was probably a year or more at that point. NDOT has made some good progress in the intervening time, and brought on another contractor, and they're trying to whittle that down. It's still not quick, but it seems to be headed in a good direction. And now we really are more like 10. And in some cases, we're being told it could have been, they may have done a project recently in 8 months from the time of the ballot. So still feels like a long time, but they're making good progress on that front.
Question, Jeff?
Sure.
Is there a way to find updates on where they are with progress? Because I know the neighborhood's still waiting on several projects that have been passed, Fairfax and Woodlawn. Is there a way to find out about where we are in the pipeline for those?
Yeah, good question. A little bit, I would say. One of the other thing, actually an advancement that has been made since we talked last time is the online tracker has been revamped. There's a lot more information there than it used to be. And again, and you can find it on the Traffic Calming website. And the additional information is a little more detailed, like what you're asking about. It's not just, are we working on it or not? Now it's more of, has the ballot passed? Is it with the contractor, or is it, sitting in the contractor's queue? The problem is, we don't always know. I'm not sure NDOT staff, specific to day actually know, where those projects are, what's coming up, and for good reason. They will cut work orders to that contractor who might have 6 or 8 projects going at any one time. And they may go out because they've got other work in the area and do a project or do part of a project and come back and finish it later. There's just a lot of moving pieces to all of that, and so to track that at any given time about where they are and where they're going next is more difficult than it would seem. So I can't tell you, it's going to happen in 7 weeks or anything like that, but we can tell you if a PO has been cut. That's color coded on that tracker website, and so a little bit more than we used to, but still not
Great. Thank you.
Information. Yeah. So just to refresh you on the ballot process, that'll be the next thing coming up. If these will go to property owners along these 2 streets. If you own property that abuts the right of way of either of these streets and the project limits, you'll get one of these cards, and it points you to a special website where it's a Nashville.gov page where you just put in your name, your address information, how you want to vote, and it logs it. And again, we keep that open for 6 weeks. And at the end of that time, we close it and we'll tally it up. And if 2/3 of the responses are favorable, in favor of the project, we will move that on, mark it as a pass, and move that on into the contractor's queue. I think that's it on that page. A little bit more detail about who would get to vote, like the question there earlier. We typically do vote, do poll, of course, residential property owners and also churches and schools. If I don't know that any of these are vacant parcels, I don't know if anybody's got a side lot or something. If there's a vacant property, we typically won't vote it. The other thing that might come into play is we only vote any individual property owner once. So if someone owns multiple pieces of property in the study area, they'll only get one ballot. Be only eligible to vote once. Businesses, you see, like in this is the yellow boxes here would indicate the properties that we would be polling. This is just an example on Blair down at the 21st Avenue Inn, and you'll note that we don't ballot Kroger or the filling station or any of those commercial properties. This is a residential property, and those businesses really aren't impacted greatly anyway, because we don't start those cushions until we actually come into kind of the neighborhood proper. So in any event, you see there the how we would vote that. We do have a couple of HPRs, it looks like, or multiple units on one piece of property. All of anybody who owns property, a unit in that, if they are listed as an owner, they'll get a ballot as well. Any other questions on the voting process? Again, that's something that if y'all are good with it here tonight, and like what you've seen from the design standpoint, it's already online. We can send those cards out very quickly. Y'all are ready to move it along. That is our contact information. Feel free to reach out to one or both of those. The NDOT traffic calming is monitored by several of the staff there with the city. So hence the kind of generic, but that is the best way to get in contact with them. And then I'm Jeff with Birch below. I've made reference to their the city traffic calming website a couple of times, so there's a link to that if you're not familiar with it. Great resource for all things traffic calming in Nashville. I don't want to keep you any longer than you have to, but I'm glad to answer any other questions or comments.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Okay. Well, thank you all again. Don't hesitate to reach out if you think of anything later. And again, appreciate your time. Thank you for bearing with us on a long process to this point. I hope we'll see a pickup in pace.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
so Jeff, the recording of this is going to go on the traffic calming website, or are you going to, can you send it out? Are you?
Yeah, I can't send it out because I don't have all of y'all's contacts. But if you give us a couple of days, I would say, let's say Thursday. I'd say maybe Tuesday or Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week.
Okay.
Check back. You can go to this page right here, and as you scroll down, one of the options is view a traffic calming meeting.
Okay.
Over the YouTube. It's on the city's YouTube page.
Okay.
But yeah, that's where those will be.
Okay. Thanks.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you. I hope you enjoy your evening. And again, thanks for your participation in this project. Appreciate
Thank you,
it very
Jeff.
much.
Have a good
Yeah.
night.
You too.